watched from orbit, from distant stars, from behind fortified walls and encrypted channels. They watched as the planet bled. But they didn't move, didn't speak, didn't help, because it wasn't their world, but it was ours. And humans? Humans don't run from fire. They run into it. Captain Elin Rourke had 3 rules: protect the living, shield the weak, and leave no one behind. Today, she was about to break all 3. The city of Varellin burned beneath a slate-gray sky. The orbital bombardments had stopped, but only because there was nothing left to destroy. Rubble smoldered. Skyscrapers wept sparks. Screams echoed through fractured comms. And still, Ellen stayed. Status, she snapped into her comm. 2 more survivors located near the hydro plants. Children. We're routing a drone, Lieutenant Kell replied. Negative, I'm going. Ma'am. She was already running. Armor cracked from shrapnel, rifle at her back. Her boots pounded the broken concrete as the last evacuation shuttle on Varellin's surface began countdown. Above, the galaxy watched. Dozens of alien ships held position in high orbit. Observers, monitors, neutral fleets. They had data, they had reach, but no orders to engage. Because Varellin wasn't their concern. A Terran world on the outer fringe, its people had no value in the galactic calculus. No wealth, no rare minerals. Just life, messy, loud, human life. And for the United Assembly, that wasn't enough. Ellen kicked down a door and found the children huddled beneath a desk, no older than 10. Smoke curled in through broken walls. She dropped to her knees. I've got you. You're safe now. They didn't speak, just clung to her armor as she lifted them both. Kale's voice barked through comms. Shuttle's leaving. 30 seconds. Ellen ran. Not because she thought she'd make it, but because they had to. The boarding ramp was already rising when she reached it. Kale appeared like a ghost through smoke, eyes wide, hand outstretched. She threw the children, and then the shockwave hit. A nearby reactor ignited, hurling her back through the dust. The shuttle roared upward. Ellen fell. She woke up to silence, choking heat, blurred vision. Her suit's auto-injector kept her heart steady, her wounds sealed, just enough to move, just enough to crawl. And in orbit, the galaxy watched. They watched her drag herself through ash, watched her stumble, bleeding and broken, towards a city that no longer existed. Watched her rise again and again. Because humans don't die easy. They don't fall for the sake of it. They fall because sometimes that's the only way to keep others standing. At the edge of the crater, a recon drone hovered silently. Alien, civilian grade. Watching, recording, not helping. Ellen stared straight into the lens. Is this enough for you? She rasped. Then she turned away, toward the smoke, toward the screaming she could still hear beneath it. Because there were others. And if she didn't go, no one would. And the galaxy would keep watching. The moment the shuttle left Varellin's atmosphere, the eyes of the galaxy began to shift. In orbit, aboard the diplomatic observation vessel Celestion Pearl, Ambassador Irian of the Thio Conclave paced with uncomfortable precision. She should not have survived, he muttered. His aide, a soft-spined creature from the Kalin sector, blinked nervously. And yet she did. The humans have resolve. Resolve, Irian snapped. That wasn't resolve. That was lunacy. In front of them, the holofeed looped Captain Elin Rourke's last moments before the blast. The transmission had gone viral across 12 sectors within hours. Alien forums filled with disbelief, admiration, and quiet fear. Why didn't they just abandon the planet? Irian hissed. The aide hesitated. Because, sir, humans don't abandon their own. On the outer edge of Sol space, the Terran Defense Council sat in emergency session. General Rafe Nilo, grizzled and worn, leaned over a secure table. We've received over 30 data packets from alien observers. All of them watched, none intervened. A diplomat from the Commonwealth Alliance clenched his fists. We begged them for aid. They sent drones, cameras, statements, not soldiers. President Hanvire folded her hands. Then let them watch what happens next. Because Rourke's signal had survived. In her last transmission, barely legible, her voice had cut through smoke and static. Don't come for revenge. Come for the living. There are still more here. I saw them. The council didn't argue. They didn't call for vengeance. They called for rescue. Back on Varellon, deep beneath the rubble, Ellen Rourke dragged herself through collapsed tunnels. Her suit power was failing. Her water supply was gone. Her lungs ached with every breath. But she wasn't done. Not yet. Not while screams still echoed in her memory. A soft chime flickered across her visor. A signal. Faint. Almost imperceptible. She adjusted the receiver. Help us. Coordinates. Southeast quadrant. Trapped under... She smiled. Not because she was safe, but because they were alive. Above her the stars pulsed. Silent. Cold. Watching. But she didn't care anymore. Because she wasn't waiting for them. She was waiting for Earth. And Earth was already coming. When the second wave of Terran dropships burst through Varellon's sky, there were no warning shots, no formal declarations. There was only purpose. Firefighters, medics, combat engineers, rescue drones, powered exosuits tearing through stone. And in the center of it all, Lieutenant Kale leading the advance. Find her, he ordered. Find them all. We don't leave Varellon until every last civilian is pulled from the dirt. Alien watchers recorded. They logged the operations, the heart monitors, the rescue patterns, the recovery chants. They didn't understand it, but they felt it. This was humanity. Not just war. Refusal. To lose. To forget. To stop. Lieutenant Kale pushed deeper into the ruins, dust clinging to his armor like memory. He moved without pause, his HUD lighting the way through what remained of Varellon's old commerce district. The buildings here had crumbled days ago, shelled into rubble by the Ivrin conflict fleet before they withdrew. Behind him, 4 Terran exosuits worked in synchronized precision. They lifted beams like toothpicks, scanned heat signatures, deployed med pods without ceremony. This wasn't war, it was rescue. Deliberate, relentless, and unflinching. Heat source, 11 meters, Kale barked. The suits adjusted. One dropped to a knee, arm transforming into a cutting laser. It began to slice through what had once been a residential mezzanine. Kale crouched, voice low. Talk to me. Faint signal. Single occupant. Injuries critical. Air's thin. Kale pulled off his helmet and leaned in. Through the narrow gap, he saw her. A young Elenari girl, skin mottled with dust and blood, one arm trapped beneath a collapsed stone. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She blinked. Kale reached through. I've got you, he whispered. Why? She croaked. You're human. Kale smiled, a crack in the ash. That's exactly why. Elsewhere on Varellon, Captain Ellen Rourke had managed 10 more meters. Her legs barely obeyed commands. Her HUD flickered on and off. Her suit's oxygen was in redline territory. But she didn't stop, because now she wasn't crawling toward safety. She was crawling toward voices. She heard them faintly. Civilians, maybe 30 meters beneath an old water filtration station. Weak, fading, but real. She slammed a fist against her helmet. You're not dying on my watch. Pulling a plasma charge from her belt, she jammed it into the ground and began carving through the floor with shaking hands. Every second felt like forever. Every breath felt like her last. But when the slab finally gave way, she looked down and saw them. 4 Ilari, 2 children, and one of them smiled. We thought no one was coming, the child said. You're wrong, Rourke rasped. We never stop coming. In orbit, the Council of Sectors debated. Dozens of alien species watched the rescue unfold. They tracked every pulse, every drop of Terran blood spilled for people not their own. Some called it admirable. Others called it madness. A few stayed silent because they had no answer for what they were seeing. Not domination, not conquest, just humans, bleeding and breaking and refusing to leave anyone behind. Even now, long after the battle had ended, one ambassador from the Urali turned to their peers. We watched them die. They fought for every last life. The room went still, because now they understood. Terra didn't fight for glory. Terra fought to not forget. The air still crackled from the last atmospheric descent. A second wave of Terran dropships pierced the cloud layer, not with fire, but with urgency. Rescue crafts, mobile med units, supply drones. No cannons, no demands, just purpose. Captain Ellen Rourke sat leaned against a fractured wall, her body nearly spent. Two Alari children leaned into her, wrapped in a thermal cloak cut from her own undersuit. Their eyes didn't blink. They just watched her. You came back, one of them whispered. Rourke coughed blood into her glove. We never left. Above, Kale's voice crackled through her earpiece. We found another pocket, 50 plus, buried deep, Sector 12. But we're losing oxygen down here. Rourke shifted. Her body screamed in protest. I'll divert evac drones, reroute power from my suit. Buy you an hour. Captain, you'll pass out. That's not your concern, Lieutenant. Behind Kale, the tunnel groaned. The Brakari may have left the surface, but they'd left traps. Mines, collapsing tunnels, radiation blooms. This wasn't just a graveyard. It was a message. And humans weren't in the mood to listen. Back in orbit, the Celishan Pearl's observation deck darkened. Ambassador Irian stared at a new projection. Are they expanding the rescue zone? His aide asked. Irian didn't respond immediately. Because the image before him defied explanation. Terran units, already bleeding resources, were moving further into the blast zones, deeper into territory no other species would dare touch. They're not just evacuating survivors, Irian muttered. They're chasing hope. On the surface, Kale and his squad reached the final barricade. Behind a fallen monorail station, a dozen Alari huddled in silence, starving, breathing recycled air filtered through Terran purifiers. Kale dropped to a knee beside a trembling elder. Are we too late? The old Alari didn't speak, just stared. A child tugged his coat. They came, didn't they? Kale nodded. We always do. A sudden shudder, then collapse. The tunnel roof gave way. Dust, steel, silence. Only Kale's voice came through the static, low and steady. Seal the exits. Route emergency beamers. And if we go down here, he looked at the Alari. We go down with them. And the stars kept watching. The collapse echoed like thunder underground. Kale's breath hitched as the dust settled. For a moment, everything was still, until the red emergency lights pulsed back to life. His HUD flickered. His squad's vitals blinked erratically. Roll call, he shouted. Vega, stable. Minor leg trauma. Lauren, alive. Got 3 civvies shielded. Kale exhaled. Good. We hold. Nobody moves until we assess structural load. He turned to the Alari elder, kneeling beside him, offering a cracked water flask. You made it. That's what matters. The elder's eyes shimmered. Why would you risk so much for us? Kale didn't blink. Because this isn't just your planet anymore. We stepped on it. We bled for it. That makes it ours too. Above ground, Captain Rourke had lost contact with Kale's team. Her pulse raced. Her suit's diagnostics screamed warnings, but her voice stayed steady. Command, dispatch Echo Lance to Sector 12. Bring cutting drones, thermal rigs, and med sleds. I want a hole punch through that rubble before I count to 60. Control hesitated. Captain, your vitals are not your concern. They're still alive. And as long as that's true, we don't stop. In orbit, debates grew louder. They're risking too much, an advisor on the Celishan Pearl argued. They're burning ships, medics, logistics, on civilians no one else would mourn. Ambassador Urian didn't respond. He watched the Terran feed, watched as a half-collapsed captain with internal bleeding still directed a rescue op with one working arm. No. What are they trying to prove? Someone whispered. Irian finally spoke. Nothing. That's the difference. They're not trying to prove they care. They just do. Back below, sparks flew. The drone teams reached Kale's position in just under 4 minutes. The first beams of light cut through the dust like sunrise through fog. Relief teams poured in, hauling survivors and wounded alike. The moment Kale emerged, battered and streaked in blood, his first words were not for himself. Check the children first. Rourke was waiting. She gave him a single nod. Hell of a cave you found. Kale grinned weakly. Only the best for our guests. They shared a moment, not of victory but of understanding. Because survival wasn't enough. Humanity had chosen hope as its hill to die on, and it would defend it to the last breath. From orbit, the cameras captured the image. 2 bloodied Terran officers carrying a line of Alori children through dust and flame. The caption translated into 76 languages. No one dies alone. Captain Rourke walked through ash. Each step was slower now. Her suit's servos groaned with damage. Warning displays flickered across her visor, and pain pulsed up her ribs in sharp, rhythmic bursts. The med scan read internal bleeding, possible spinal stress. But the HUD only mattered if she planned on stopping. She didn't. Ahead, Echo Lance was deploying around what used to be a civic bunker. Rourke's approach drew salutes, but she waved them off. Status? She asked. Lieutenant Tessa, her second on the ground, stepped forward. 20 confirmed inside. 2 medics went dark trying to breach. Structure's unstable. Then we go quiet. She moved without hesitation, placing her palm against the broken steel, testing the vibration, sensing the depth. Years ago, she'd breached bunkers under fire. Today it was worse. Today, every second mattered. Inside, a voice broke static. This is Dr. Sarai. We have wounded, air filtration failing. Power at 7%. If someone's out there, please. We have children. Rourke pressed her calm. Sarai, this is Captain Rourke of the Terran Rescue Command. Hold position. Help is 10 meters above you. A pause, then soft sobbing. You actually came. We always do. Tessa flinched as a tremor ran through the ground. Captain, if that reactor destabilizes, the entire block goes. Then we don't let it. In orbit, the feed paused. The galaxy watched as the Terran fleet adjusted formation, blocking potential orbital debris. No threat present, no need to act. They did it anyway. Unnecessary risk, an alien general scoffed. Ambassador Irian turned slowly. To them, nothing is unnecessary. Every life they pull out, it's a victory against silence. Back below, Kale joined Rourke, his own armor scorched and smeared with dust. You should be resting. Then you don't know me, Rourke said. Was afraid of that. They didn't exchange more words. They knew what had to be done. Together they moved, Rourke marking entry points, Kale planting beacons, Tessa coordinating evac corridors. Each action deliberate, measured, and then the floor gave. Not all of it, just enough to send Rourke falling. She landed hard. Darkness, smoke, crushed metal. Above, alarms blared. Captain down! Inside the bunker, Sarai heard the impact. She crawled toward the sound, whispering prayers. A voice called back. Still breathing, Rourke coughed. But let's not test how long. Hands reached her. Ilari hands. Human hands. People who had once waited for death, now dragging their rescuer to her feet. Rourke looked around the bunker, into eyes that once held only fear. Now they held fire. I didn't save you, she whispered. You saved me. When they emerged, 20 souls behind them, the air burst with static applause. From every Terran channel, every unit, every evac ship. The ground didn't just cheer. It believed. Because sometimes, in the ashes of despair, you don't need orders. You just need someone who doesn't stop. Virellin's winds began to shift. The dust settled slower now. Rescue operations continued, but a new tension filled the air, like a storm waiting to be named. Captain Rourke stood atop a communications relay, her helmet off, hair matted to her face. The bunker collapse had left her shoulder torn and ribs fractured, but the pain was background noise now. She stared toward the horizon, a faint glimmer. Not fire. Engines. Contact? Carol asked, stepping beside her. Rourke didn't answer. She activated a long-range scan, her visor overlay drawing patterns against the skyline. Incoming ships, non-Terran. No ident codes, trajectory. Too slow for combat, too steady for evac. Scout formation. Tessa, now coordinating from ground command, responded. Could be scavengers. Could be worse. Cale gritted his teeth. We're not armed for confrontation. Rourke's jaw tightened. Doesn't matter. We don't leave. The ships descended slowly. 6 of them, black and quiet, casting long shadows across the ruins. From orbit, alien watchers reacted. Unauthorized incursion, the AI on Celestian Pearl announced. Protocol breach. Let the Terrans respond, Urian murmured. Back on the ground, Rourke approached the nearest descent vector, alone. Her squad held back, watching every move. She kept her rifle slung, not as a threat, but as a statement. The lead ship touched down, its ramp hissed open, and from the smoke emerged figures, tall, armored, masked, silent. Rourke didn't blink. You're late. No response. She stepped forward. If you're here to take survivors, go home. They're not yours. One figure finally spoke. The voice was synthesized, cold. The world is condemned. Scavenge operations are authorized under Section 7.2 of Galactic Collapse Ordinance. Not anymore, Rourke said. This world's under Terran reclamation, and we don't leave graves for vultures. Cale's voice came over comms. We've got 30 civilians en route to surface safe zones. If these things engage, they won't, Rourke replied. The silence stretched. Then the lead scavenger stepped back. Without a word, they turned. One by one, the ships lifted, not in retreat, in recognition of a line that could not be crossed. Not because of strength, because of resolve. As the Terran flags were planted beside Alari sigils, orbit-wide broadcasts resumed. The galaxy watched, again. But this time it understood. This wasn't just survival. It was principle. And Earth had drawn a line not around its borders, but around hope. The final transmission from Varellan didn't begin with an alert or a warning. It began with a name. This is Captain Ellen Rourke, Terran Rescue Command. We are standing down. All confirmed civilian groups have been evacuated. All registered life signs accounted for. She stood at the base of the monument being erected from salvaged alloy in scorched stone. It wasn't a monument to war. It was a monument to presence, a symbol that someone had stayed when it mattered. The monument's inscription read, "We heard you. We came. We stayed." She placed her hand against the alloy. Her fingers shook from nerve damage. Her armor scorched and cracked. But her voice, when she looked up at the camera feed still transmitting to the Council of Sectors, was calm. We're not leaving Varellan. Not all of us. This world isn't just a rescue site now. It's a recovery zone. And it will recover with us here. The screen cut to Cale, now in a command vest, directing construction drones, rebuilding power conduits, securing water filtration lines. Alari civilians worked beside Terran engineers, laughing, sweating, belonging. Ambassador Irian, watching the live feed from the Celestian Pearl, said softly to no one, "They came to save lives and stayed to restore them." One cycle later, the council convened. The footage of Terran operations on Varellan played on a loop, first as spectacle, then as evidence, and finally as precedent. "This is not war," one ambassador murmured. "No," said another. "This is what we forgot." A vote was called. For the first time in over a century, the Terran flag was acknowledged as a peacekeeping symbol by the Interstellar Concord. Not because of a treaty, because of action. Because when others had watched, Earth had moved. Rourke sat on the edge of a rebuilt comms tower days later, overlooking the valley below where green had started to reclaim blackened soil. Children, Ilari and human alike, ran through the fields. Laughter echoed in places that once held screams. Kale sat beside her, sipping synthetic coffee. They're saying this will be remembered as the moment the galaxy learns something new about us. Rourke didn't smile. She just breathed. We didn't do it to teach anyone, she said. I know, Kale replied, but they learned anyway. She looked to the horizon, a sky no longer streaked with smoke, but clouds and light. I'd do it all again, she said. Every second, every step, every scar. Kale's voice was quiet. I think that's why it mattered. At the edge of the known systems, a new monument was being constructed by alien hands. Not on Earth, not on Varellan, but on a neutral moon where peace once collapsed. The inscription was universal. They fought not for power, not for territory, but because someone called for help, and Earth answered. And below it, in Terran script, every life matters. Every scream is heard. Every call is ours to answer. The galaxy had watched them die, and then it watched them rise. Not in triumph, in unity. And for the first time in a long time, the stars fell silent. Not in judgment, in respect.